Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. I've been told that I'm not doing a good enough job promoting my various different websites and where I put my reports out. This is my main hub, which is rocksandstocks.substack.com. And you can find all my reports, whether they're video or written reports, on here. And then, of course, on my YouTube at Rocks and Stocks News. Just search for Rocks and Stocks News on YouTube. And another thing that I have been working on a lot lately, is using artificial intelligence to help me compile my work. I do a lot of reporting, as my regular viewers know, and sometimes keeping track of all that is not exactly easy. And so, what has I've been working on with SuperGrok is creating research files for each of the companies that I cover. And the I don't exactly know what I'm going to be doing with those for now. I'm using them as my for my own purposes to keep track of the companies that I follow. But I'm planning on, probably, I have paid subscribers on my Substack that I'm going to make them available to. And also, I have a WhatsApp group that we have a very good group in there of some mining executives, some money managers, investors all across the spectrum of retail. And it's a very lively group. And if you want to get in there, just go to or just send me an email at rocksandstocksnews@gmail.com, and I'll send you the link. And it's all very simple to join in there, and we talk about all things rocks and stocks. So now that I've got my promotion of my digital marketing tools, if you will, looked after, I'm also on X. I spend a fair bit of time on X, and you can look for me there as Allan B Reports. So Allan B as in boy, Reports at Allan B Reports is where you find me on X. Okay, so now that I got that under control, um, the every year at the end of the year, I do a review of what I did at the beginning of each year. I do what I in 2025, which was my Outlook 2025. And in early January, I'll be doing my Outlook 2026. But to close off the year, I do a review of the year and what I talked about in my Outlook 2025 report. And I did that review on December the 28th. But this year, I've decided to start a new year in review, which is over the yesterday and today. I'm going over some of my picks and talking about what happened for them in 2025, with a bit of an outlook on what I see happening in 2026 for them. And so on Sunday, December 28th, I did the 2025 year in review report. And then yesterday, Monday the 29th, I did my year in review for stock picks at Rocks and Stocks News. And so that included 9 Mile Metals. So 9 Mile Metals is one of my companies that are a what I call my top of mind picks. And they had some news out that I thought was very important. So I invite you to check that out. Now, another category that I have is what I call my unicorn picks. And my unicorn picks are companies that I get this from the tech sector. In the tech sector, companies that have huge success, that really is transformational for their valuation, are called unicorns. And I have four unicorn picks. One of those is Vizsla Silver. I talked about them yesterday. That's for their spectacular Panuco silver project. Then McEwen Inc. is my copper unicorn, and that is due to their Los Azules copper project in Argentina. Goliath Resources is my gold exploration unicorn. I think that they have the next major high grade gold discovery in the Golden Triangle of British Columbia. And I think that that can transform them into a billion, $2 billion kind of company over the next year or two. Amex Exploration, they've got a fantastic project in gold in Quebec that has a path towards production. They're a developer of a gold project that's very high grade. So those are my unicorn picks. Now, another group I have is called my top of mind picks. And my top of mind picks have very significant projects that are have me excited about their projects, and they're doing a lot of work, and that's what keeps them on the top of my mind. So Pirate Gold is one of those for their project in Newfoundland. I've been talking a lot about why I think that Newfoundland is going to be the Abitibi 2.0. It has all the right geological characteristics. Pirate Gold, as well as Newfound Gold, and I'm going to be talking about another pick today, which is a miner that is bringing the Valentine Lake mine into production. So I have sort of three pillars of companies that are exposed to what I think will emerge to be the Abitibi 2.0, which is in Newfoundland. One of those is Pirate Gold. Sterling Metals has a fantastic high grade discovery. They have some more assays pending, and also they're loaded up with cash and getting ready to start their winter 2026 program. Kirkland Lake Discoveries has also got a high grade copper project that also has very good potential for gold as well. This is in the Kirkland Lake area, which is elephant country, and they're drilling now. So they'll have a lot of assays pending and a lot of drilling to do. I think the program is 25,000 meters or something like that. For Pirate Gold, it's 50,000 meters that they're doing, started in December and will go throughout 2026. Borealis Mining is a new junior gold, emerging junior gold miner in Nevada with excellent projects. I talked about them yesterday. Foran Mining is a late stage development company. They're about 80% of the way to building their copper mine in Saskatchewan and called McIlvenna Bay. And I think that they're primed to go up the right side of the Lassonde curve. Newfound Gold is in Newfoundland. They are a developer of a new high grade mine that is open pit, but super high grade for an open pit mine. So I think that they got a really profitable mine that they're developing. And so the Pirate Gold is a pure explorer in Newfoundland. Newfound Gold has a combination of developing a high grade mine and also exploring it. Plus, they just acquired a new producer in Newfoundland, so they've got mining infrastructure there that will help them. Norsemont Mining, they've got a 2.7 million ounce resource, historical resource on their their project in Chile, and they're drilling now. So they've got pending news. Blackrock Silver is a high grade silver. It's a silver gold project in Nevada. with the highest undeveloped silver equivalent project in the world. And they've met one of my thresholds, which is a 100 million ounce resource. That's a rule of thumb that we use. It gives you a ballpark of about 10 million ounces of production over a 10-year period. So that's an exciting project. West Red Lake Gold, they're about to turn, well, they've turned on their Madsen mine, and now that they're about to go into full commercial production in January, and that's in Red Lake, Ontario. And then Earth Labs is a my special situation pick, and why they are a special situation is I have talked many times in the past about why I think that the mining sector needs to more embrace the digital marketing world. And Earth Labs owns some really high quality um, digital marketing platforms like CEO.ca, which I kind of call the Twitter of mining. And then they've also owned the Northern Miner, which is the was the Bible of mining for over 100 years. They have a couple other digital marketing platforms. Plus, they have a fund where they invest into junior miners. So I talked about those companies yesterday, and today I've got a new batch of companies for you. And the categories for those are I'm going to talk about my major precious metal miners, my mid-tier gold miners, my junior gold miners, and probably my developers today. And then tomorrow I'll talk about if I get through all my developers, then I'll get on to the explorers as well. So let's get into my major. So I'm gonna pull this back to when I first started talking about um, Agnico Eagle, which was the first quarter of 2024. They were trading at about 50, $60 when I first started talking about them. I got to get rid of a couple of indicators here. This stock charts always adds these extra ones that I don't really pay any attention to. I'm a pretty simple guy when it comes to the charts. I look for key trends, and all of that is in the volume, in the 50-day and 200-day moving averages. Okay, so I started talking about Agnico Eagle in 2024. I talked about them and was talking about the gold price at that time. I thought was primed to go through 2100 and then set a series of record highs. It has done that throughout 2024 and 2025, and I think we'll do that throughout 2026 as well. Why I picked Agnico Eagle is because I have a pretty broad range of investors. Some of them follow me for my majors because they want exposure to gold uh, with added torque, but not a lot of downside risk. And that's why I had picked Agnico Eagle. And they back then they were about 50, $60. Today they closed at 170. Oh, I used I prefer, as a Canadian, I prefer to use the Canadian version. So here is the Canadian version. There you go. So it was about $60 Canadian. Today it closed at $235. And as you can see, it has significantly outperformed gold. And that's why I had one of the reasons that I had picked them. And as you can see from the trend, not a lot of downside risk along the way. So it's that added torque kind of story without a lot of downside risk. So it almost tripled, I think around triple the movement in the price of gold has happened for Agnico Eagle. Now, Along the way, as gold was making record highs, Agnico Eagle also made a series of record highs in their free cash flow. Okay. And that's a big metric for me when I look at the major mining companies. If they've got lots of cash flow, that means they're doing a good job of keeping their cost, their all-in cost down and making a high margin, and that gives you records in free cash flow, which is what they've done. Now, a particular note for me right now is that, as you can see, over the last, since about October, the stock has been basically going sideways along the 50-day moving average at the same time that gold has been having a phenomenal quarter. I believe that this quarter of the last quarter of 2025 is probably, they're going to probably averaging out at somewhere around 42, 42.50 of what they're selling their gold for, which is about $600 or $700 better than the third quarter, which was the best quarter ever. So I think that they are going to significantly out. I think they're going to have their blowout quarter where they could reach close to $2 billion in free cash flow. But as you can see, the stock is not really pricing in a blowout quarter in the third and fourth quarter of 2025. And so I see this as a coiled spring that's ready for a significant breakout. Yeah, there you go. That's the Agnico Eagle story. Now, my next pick is Newmont, and they are traded on the New York Stock Exchange. And I picked Newmont right about here at about $45 just before they went through the Golden Cross. Now, I had held off picking them throughout all of 2024 and pretty much throughout the first quarter of 2025. And the reason that I had done that is because during that period, they had taken over Newcrest and were, sometimes it takes a few quarters to sort of merge the takeover like that into the new Newmont, if you will. Another thing they had done in 2024 was they sold off all of their tier two assets. Okay. And some of my other picks have benefited from that because they bought those, and I'll talk about those later. So that was and so then they were going to focus in on optimizing their tier one mines. Okay. I like that. Now, when you sell off some mines, you're going to reduce your production, but if you can make your tier one mines more efficient, they're going to start making records in free cash flow, which they've done recently over the last couple of quarters. Now, another key reason that I picked Newmont is because Newmont, I call it the Newmont effect. What I mean by that is that when the generalist investors out there think about gold miners, Newmont is one of the top of mind companies. So if Newmont is doing well, it tends to give the generalist investors looking at gold stocks a much more confidence in the gold stocks in general. Okay. Now, another thing is that another key asset that the generalists think about is the GDX. And Newmont makes up about 12, 14% of the GDX. So if Newmont is doing good, it helps the sentiment towards gold stocks. It also helps the GDX, which also feeds into the confidence for generalist investors into the gold stock. So I call this the Newmont effect. And I saw these fundamental changes to the company, felt it was a good time to pick them. They were probably trading at about 43 or $44 when I picked them just before they went into this Golden Cross. And since then, they've just done phenomenally well. They've over doubled from that level. Today, they closed at $101.83, and that was up $2 or 2.02%. And so those are the key reasons. One is a sentiment indicator, plus the fundamentals, and they had been a long-term under performer, and I thought that they were ready to start being a very good performer, and it has worked out very well. And I think that this is we're in the early days of Newmont doing a lot better relative to their peers. Okay, so that's Newmont. Let's now go to, hold on a second here. Got to look at my paperwork. Oh, Pan American Silver. Now, Pan American Silver is kind of like, for me, the equivalent of um, Agnico Eagle, but for silver. Okay. And I picked them a few months ago. I think it was about 40 ish dollars. And today they closed at $72. Now, the rationale behind why I picked them is because I was predicting when I started picking them, when silver was about $35 an ounce, I was predicting that silver was going to start doing what gold had done in the first quarter of 2024, which was enter into a period where they would set a series of record highs. And this would be my leverage play on silver doing what gold and Agnico Eagle did since early 2024. And so this is a relatively new pick, and it's a pick that is a torque on silver because they're one of the best silver mining companies. Also helps that they don't have a lot of debt. I think they've got 220% or so cash to debt. So they're loaded up with cash. They did some acquisitions and they could do more. One of those assets that they bought was the Mag Silver, which was a pick that I made before they brought their project into production, and it went up the right side of the Lassonde curve. Was a very successful pick in the reports over the last few years, and uh, now Pan American Silver is going to benefit from that. Plus, there are other mines as well. And so Pan American Silver is the silver equivalent for me of the rationale that I used to pick Agnico Eagle in the first quarter of 2024. It dramatically outperformed gold, and I think that Pan American Silver will do the same thing as silver gets into the trend of setting record highs. I think that Pan American Silver will significantly outperform. So that is the Pan American Silver. And my only other, so I only have four major mining majors, precious metal miners, and the other one is Coeur Mining. Now, Coeur Mining was a struggling company for a long time. And, a real underperformer. When gold was kind of going sideways in 22, 23, 24, and silver was as well, you can see that they were down. And what helped them to improve was they took over one of my other picks that did very well. Another pick that I picked before they went up the right side of the Lassonde curve when they were in development and about to bring their Las Chispas mine into production, uh, they Core bought them. Okay, and some of the reasons that they bought them was that the Las Chispas mine was such a successful mine that they had built up $200 million in cash, and Core was carrying a fair bit of debt because they built up debt to build their Rochester mine. And so the other thing that they were also a fairly high cost producer. So Las Chispas enabled them to bring their costs down and also increase their silver production. And so it was a very good acquisition, but because I had done so well on my pick with Las Chispas, I was kind of reluctant to switch over. I wasn't hearing what I wanted to hear from core management, which was I wanted to hear that they're going to, get rid of as much debt as they could with the cash position that they had gained because of the takeover of Las Chispas. And they were talking about maybe using half of that money and keeping some of their debt. And because of the struggles they had had in the past, I wasn't convinced that that was a great idea. But then they announced that they were taking over New Gold, which is a low cost producer. And funny enough, when they did that, the stock got hammered down to about $14.50, where I made them a pick. And I think that the New Gold acquisition is going to be exceptionally good for the bottom line of Core. So I just made them a pick in the last couple months, not even 2 months. And in a short period of time, they went from about 14 and a half. They closed today at 18.10. I have picked them because I think that this acquisition is going to be a game changer along with their Las Chispas and Rochester. And I think that these assets combined makes Core a much better company. And so I think that they've got a lot of waves to ride upwards from where they are now. And I like this recent breakout above the 50-day moving average. And I think that this 50-day that has kind of softened up here of late will get back onto this kind of a trend very soon. And I'm really optimistic about core mining. Alrighty. Okay, so that's my majors. And now in my mid tiers, I only have four picks as well. One of those, and has been since the same time that I was picking Agnico Eagle in the first quarter of 2024. So, way back here when they were trading at about $12 a share, they closed today at $39.11. This is the Hold on a second here. I want the Canadian listing because I think in Canadian dollars as a Canadian. So let's go back to the Canadian listing. So yeah, back here they were trading at about $16 a share in Canadian. Today they closed at $53.56 Canadian. And as you can see, they perform very much like Agnico Eagle. And the reason that they have done that is because they are a low cost producer. So they currently produce gold for less than the average cost of the mid tiers and the majors. And they have been taking their free cash flow and putting that back into new mine development that will basically almost double their production and bring their costs down of all-in sustaining costs down to about $200 or $300 less than the all-in cost of their peers. So they're taking their free cash flow, They're putting it into new mines that will dramatically increase their free cash flow. And so I think if someone put a gun to my head and said you got to pick either Agnico Eagle or Alamos, I would pick Alamos. And that's not an easy thing for me to say because I'm a very big fan of Agnico Eagle. I just think that they have some extra torque because of how they're going to be one of the lowest cost producers in the mid tier and the major space of gold miners. And I think that puts them in a fantastic situation. As you can see, they recently broke out to above their 50-day moving average. And as they have more catalysts in the early part of 2026, that's one. So they got the torque from their new mine. Plus, they've got the torque in gold, which I think is going to. I don't want to give away my Outlook 2026 report too much, but let's just say that I think that we're going to have another year where gold sets another series of record highs. So this company has a lot of catalysts, and they're not as well known as an Agnico Eagle amongst the generalist investors, but amongst the folks at Rocks and Stocks News, they've been hearing me talk a lot about them over the last couple years, and I think you'll hear me talking about them a lot in 2026 as well. So that's the Agnico Eagle story. Now, another mid-tier that is not super well known amongst the generalist investors is Aris Mining. And Aris, I picked them, I think it was about right here, actually. Now I remember exactly. They dipped down, but they were doing some really good things, and they dipped down to about $9 a share. And they had this really tight short-term cup and handle. And I liked the way they had, I thought that they were ready to start performing much stronger. So in a short period of time, they went from about $9 a share to $22.50 a share today. And why I like this company so much is they've got a spectacular mine in Colombia called Segovia. Very low cost, high margin, free cash flow machine of a mine. Plus, they've got others in their pipeline to build on for their long-term production, as well as still long-term production left at Segovia. Now, this company is run by Neil Woodyer, who has built a sort of a smaller miner into a mid-tier and beyond in his past. And I think this is his sort of swan song because he's getting a little long in the tooth, and I think this is his final big success. And I really like what they've got going on with their production at Segovia, their other mines that they're developing, and they could be acquisitive too because they're starting to build up a lot of cash on their balance sheet. And so, yeah, they've been a great performer since I picked them. They were a great performer even before I picked them. And that just goes to show you, folks, you don't need to get the lowest price. I mean, what's wrong with a 125% gain in a matter of about 4 or 5 months? We'll take that in a mid-tier producer all day long. And what I see happening going forward actually gives me more confidence than I saw when they were back here trading sideways from about June of 2024 until early 2025. They had that breakout and then that softness, and that's when I picked it when it was just slightly below that 50-day moving average, and they've done very well since. So that's the Aris mining story. Now, Equinox is also a very interesting story. Let's pull them up. Now, I picked them right about here, and why I picked them then was they have two key mines that they're bringing into full commercial production at the same time. This is not easy to do, and they were having some growing pains in the construction and production at their Greenstone mine in Ontario. And then they had a management shakeup and they brought Darren Hall in to run the company. Darren's a very talented miner, and within a few short weeks, he was able to make dramatic changes to what was happening at Greenstone. And then at the same time, they're bringing the Valentine Lake mine into Newfoundland into full commercial production in 2026 in Newfoundland. And earlier I talked about what I think is the emergence of the Abitibi 2.0, and that is in Newfoundland. And so they are my minor in the I got three prongs to my stool, if you will, or three legs, I guess it's called. Three legs to my stool. One is Equinox because of their Valentine Lake mine. Then there's Newfound Gold, which is a developer and explorer in Newfoundland and a miner now, actually. And then I've got Pirate Gold. And so those are my three pillars of my Abitibi 2.0 story. And when Equinox gets both Greenstone and Valentine Lake into production, they're going to be producing a lot of gold and at a very handsome margins. And so another interesting thing that recently happened was they sold off their Brazilian mines, okay? And by selling that, they were able to reduce their debt. So to bring two mines into production, they had to take on about $1 billion in debt. And by selling off the Brazil mines, they were able to dramatically reduce that debt. So now instead of Greenstone uh, and Valentine Lake needing to sort of cover and pay off that debt, now they've got blue sky ahead of them. Now, of course, this reduces their production, but I think the benefit of reducing their debt is worth more than worrying about the reduction of their production. I think it reduces their production by about 150,000 to 200,000 ounces. But again, they can use that free cash flow from Greenstone and Valentine to do something else other than paying down their debt. And there are some good assets out there. This company is an acquisitive company. Equinox is a buy and build kind of company. Ross Beatty, that's how he has built a lot of his success in mining in the past. And I think that the combination of his business plan of build and buy and build and a great operator like Darren Hall together are going to take Equinox to heights much higher than where they're currently at, which is $19.45. So over the summertime, when they dip down to about 7, 8 bucks, I picked them and they've done very good and had a golden cross here, trading well above their 50-day moving average. I think you're going to see this trajectory of the 50-day continue up at the angle at a very bullish trajectory. And the same thing is happening with their 200-day moving average. So I'm very positive about Equinox. Okay, and my final uh, pick of my mid tiers is Orla Mining. Now, Orla Mining, I picked them before they brought their first mine into production, which was Camino Rojo. They were trading at about less than $3 per share. They closed today at $18.66 a share. Now, what has me very excited about them over the last year and a half or so, when they went through this Golden Cross, is that earlier when I was talking about Newmont selling off some of their tier two mines, Orla was a beneficiary of that because they bought one of Newmont's tier two mines. Uh, I always get it mixed up, Musselwhite or Porcupine, one of those two. Those were two mines that were owned by Newmont, and they took over one of them. I'm pretty sure it's Musselwhite. I don't, my memory doesn't always serve me greatly. But nonetheless, what is a tier two asset for a huge company like a Newmont is a tier one asset for a mid tier. Okay. And what has made that mine that they bought had been in production for 28 years, and they did some step out drilling about 2 kilometers from the zones that had been mined, and it looks like it continues for another 2 kilometers. Of course, they got to do a lot more infill drilling, but the combination of the asset they bought from Newmont, their Camino Rojo mine in Mexico, and then they got a development project in Nevada. Plus, they're an acquisitive company. They've got a lot of catalysts as well. And one of their, of course, one of the catalysts is gold going up, as I said, I think in 2026, we're going to see a year much like 2024 and 2025 when gold set a series of record highs throughout the 2 years. And I think we're going to see more of that in 2026. So Orla Mining has a lot of catalysts, and they are an acquisitive company as well. They bought the Nevada development project. They bought the project, the mine from Newmont, and they built Orla, or I mean Camino Rojo themselves. And so this is kind of well, it was a pick that I made when they were in the development discount window of the Lassonde curve before they brought their first mine, Camino Rojo, into production. And that launched them up the right side of the Lassonde curve. But the other part of the right side is, what do they do after they build their first mine? Do they keep growing into a much larger company? And that's what I think Orla is going to do. And so that is the Orla mining story. All right, now I'm going to move into my junior gold miners. Now, these are the companies that I think have the potential to grow into mid tiers. Okay. And one of those is Heliostar. Now, Heliostar, I picked them when they were trading about 50 cents a share. They closed today at $2.60 a share. As you can see, they've been performing very well. So, what caused that performance? What caused that performance was that they were a explorer that was developing their uh, uh, the name of the mine escapes me right now. I'm sure I'll remember it as I'm talking about them. But uh, Ana Paula is the mine that they're developing. And so, what excites me about Ana Paula is it's a Mexican mine that will be a low cost producer and create a lot of free cash flow. But while they were doing that, they were able to buy some small mines that enabled them to become a miner. like with the checkbook. And they got them at very reasonable prices. I think they got them at a steal. Obviously, the market agrees with that analysis. And so now they are an emerging junior gold miner that has a cornerstone development project that will enable them to get up to a couple 100,000 ounces of gold. And then they are also want to be an acquirer of other mines that can help them grow into a mid-tier. Now, the company is run by Charles Funk, who's a very talented geologist, and he's also got a very good business mind to him as well. And he reminds me a lot of a young Ross Beatty. Okay. And so I think that, well, he's already had huge success because he was helpful in uh, one of my unicorn picks, Vizsla, making their great discovery. He's also done a lot of work for majors in the past. And I think that he is going to have huge success with Heliostar. And I'm very optimistic about the growth path that they're on. And I think they're going to grow over the next few years from a junior into a mid tier. And as they do that, they can grow their valuation much, very dramatically. And so this is one of those that I like the potential to grow from a junior into a mid tier. That's why I'm a big fan of Heliostar. Now, another of my juniors that has a very good path to increase their production is Luca Mining. Now, they're also in Mexico. And sorry, I got to wet my whistle here. Now, them, I picked them at under $1 back here. And today they're trading at $1.44. So they've done well, but recently they've kind of softened up a little here. And I think they've been pretty significantly oversold. And when I see a 50-day come down through that, I say, okay, now that's considered a death cross. Now, do I think that that death cross is going to take them a lot lower? And the reason that I don't is because when it's fairly shallow like this, and then it starts to bottom, I think it's going to be a very short period of time before it goes into a golden cross that takes them much higher. Today, they're trading right on their 200-day moving average. So for the last couple weeks, they've been trading above that 50-day moving average. So I think that this is one of those situations where this will come back up quite soon and take them beyond these 52-week highs, which is $1.90-ish. And I think that, the catalysts are the production at their mines and also the price of gold. And so Luca Mining is another of my junior mining picks. And I think you should do some homework on Luca Mining. Okay, and my final junior miner that I think has a very good future ahead of them is Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. Now, as you can see, recently they've broken nicely above their 50-day moving average. I think I picked them when they were trading around, I want to say a little bit less than $1. Today they're $1.80. Now, why I picked them and was because I liked what I heard about how they were going about bringing their one mine that they bought from First Majestic into production and the efforts that they were making to take their costs down. One of those is, as a junior miner, a lot of times you have to lease your machinery, and that can increase your cost. Okay. So when they can buy that machinery, that heavy those big yellow trucks or big yellow machines that helps bring their costs down. So they've been using some of their cash to do that. Then recently they announced that they were buying a second mine from First Majestic. So just coincidentally, I heard an interview by First Majestic CEO and Keith Neumeyer, and he talked about the rationale about why they sold the mine Del Toro to Sierra Madre. And one of the things was that he was very positive how they were able to turn what the mine on at the first asset they bought. So he had confidence that they would be able to turn Del Toro back on. Now, Del Toro had been on care and maintenance for a few years. And Keith Neumeyer also talked about how it was not going to be a First Majestic mine again. It was too small for them, and it was sort of burning a hole in their pocket because they were keeping it on care and maintenance. So they have this great mill there. It's all ready to go, been well maintained by First Majestic, but they needed to do something with the asset. And so they sold it to Sierra Madre with the confidence from the first mine that they sold to Sierra Madre of their ability to bring one of their old First Majestic mines back into production and make money off of it. And so Keith talked about this transaction enabling them to get all their money back out of the Del Toro care and maintenance, long-term care and maintenance that they had spent. So if they do that, that means that they've made a lot of money off of the shareholdings that they have in Sierra Madre. And so these are some of the key factors of why I like Sierra Madre's growth profile. They now have their La Guitarra mine in production, which has a lot of exploration potential. Then they got Del Toro. They're going to be doing a bunch of exploration in 2026 on that and trying to bring that into production over the next year to 2 years. They have talked about the possibility that if silver keeps and gold keep doing what they're doing, that they may bring Del Toro back into production within a year or so. But that's still a variable that we don't understand yet. Nonetheless, if you look at their assets, I think that their assets are worth significantly more than what their price is today. And I think that with gold and silver doing so well, that they've got catalysts on their projects as well as catalysts from the metals. And that's why I like Sierra Madre. Okay, so I got about 20 so minutes. Let me start to work on talking about some of my developers. So I've talked about my majors today, my mid tiers, and my junior miners that have good growth prospects. Now, my next category is my developers. So I always like to have companies in my pick list that are going through the development discount window of the Lassonde curve and are getting close to where they can go up the right side of the Lassonde curve. For those that don't know what I'm talking about when I talk about the Lassonde curve, you can do a Google search for the Lassonde curve. His Pierre Lassonde's name is spelled Lassonde, one of the greatest gold bulls in the world, built up the basically built the invented the royalty business. Also was a president and CEO of Newmont at one time. I think he was also the president of the World Gold Council. Pierre Lassonde is a legend in the mining business. And so he came up with this curve of how a company starts out as an explorer. They make a great discovery. They run up the left side of the Lassonde curve. Then they come down as they're working on the development. The development then takes on a life of its own for about 5 or more years, where they're doing all the economic evaluations, getting their permits, getting their finances, getting the project into production, and then they can go up the right side of the Lassonde curve. And so I like to have some companies in the developer space that can go up the right side of the Lassonde curve. So one of my developer picks is a company called Arizona Metals. Let's pull them up. Now, Arizona Metals, AMC, there it is on the Toronto Exchange. So, Arizona Metals, I had been watching it for a year and a half or so, and they put out a resource estimate, and the stock got hammered. And a lot of times, why that happens is because um, in their case, they wanted, sometimes it caps the project in people's investors' minds. And sometimes in their case, they wanted to do a preliminary economic assessment shortly after, like within 6 months of putting out the resource estimate. And when you do that, you have to do a what's called a constrained, or let's say a conservative resource estimate. So the market was anticipating a bigger resource, and I call those sometimes uh, arm wavy resource estimates, because they're a little more liberal, because they don't need to, they're not planning to put economics around the resource. Sometimes that takes year, 2, 5 years, 10 years. Sometimes they collect dust for a long, long period of time. So when I look at a company that is doing a resource, I like to look for these ones that very shortly, as the ink is drying on the resource estimate, that they plan on doing a preliminary economic assessment. So after they got beat down to about 80 cents, um, I my daughter's messaging me here. She wants some money from me. She'll have to come in my office and stop messaging me. Hold on a second. Okay, so they got down to about 80 cents, and then they kept on going down. But I didn't lose any faith in the company, because I know what they're doing. They're doing a preliminary economic assessment, and then they're going to put that out, and at the same time they're doing a bunch of drilling to show that this project, the resource can grow. And I've looked very closely at their project. I've looked at their exploration thesis. I've talked to their management, the leader of the company, as well as the leader of their exploration. And I think that they've got a lot more uh, to grow the resources through exploration. Plus, another catalyst, of course, is their preliminary economic assessment. And so my daughter here keeps on messaging me, and she doesn't realize I'm doing a show, but she wants some money. So hopefully she's going to come in and stop messaging me. Sorry about that interruption there. Um, so the company dropped from about 80 cents to as low as 650 cents. And since then, since they hit their 52-week or couple year low, they had a higher low, a higher high, another higher high. And so they've started to recover. And I like their chances to continue to recover and break through that 200-day moving average, and start to see the 50-day moving average turning into a more bullish trajectory. So, it's hard to get your timing perfect in the mining business. I would have rather picked them at 50 cents. I'd be up now instead of down about 10% from when I picked them, but I didn't pick them I picked them for the thesis of what's going to happen after they come out with their preliminary economic assessment and also do more drilling. And so, that's the combination of what I think will take them much higher and maybe get back to some of these $2 plus valuations. So that's the Arizona Metals story. The next, just got to make myself some notes here. Another developer that I really like a lot is Gen M, Generation Mining. Uh, Now, I'm very bullish on copper, platinum, and palladium. And when I'm bullish on a metal, I look for companies that have those metals in their company. And in the case of this company, they've gone through everything in the development stage, and now they're at the point where they need to raise the money to build the mine and then bring it into production and then go up the right side of the Lassonde curve. And what makes them even more interesting is that they have a combination of it's mainly a copper and palladium deposit that they're going to develop, but it also has platinum and gold credits as well. And so finding good palladium platinum is difficult. There's not a lot of those because most of that is done in South Africa or Russia. And I'm not a fan of projects in either of those countries. And so to have one of those in Canada is to have one is unique. To have one in Canada is, how do you say, even more unique. And so they've got this great asset. It's close to the town of Marathon, Ontario. The Trans-Canada Highway goes through it, power goes through it. It's only about 10 kilometers from the town of Marathon. And so I think that it's got key metals that are needed in the world, and I think it's got a very bright future. Now, I originally picked this company at about 20 cents. Today they're trading at 84 cents. I will note that they have this cup, the left side of the cup, the bottom of the cup, the right side of the cup, the handle, and now onwards and upwards from there. And the catalysts that drive this forward are the funding of the project. They have some of it looked after. Now they're going to get the rest of it. I think that they're going to get that because of we need more copper production, we need more platinum production, we need more palladium production, especially in a place like Canada. Okay. Um, you need platinum and palladium for catalytic converters. You also need them in hybrid vehicles. And the chances that a lot of people have speculated that the internal combustion engine's days are numbered, I don't think that's reality. So we're going to continue to need a lot of platinum and palladium. You just don't have a lot of sources for that in places like Canada. And so they have a very special project, and I'm a big fan of Generation Mining, and that's their story. All right. Another of my developers is Meridian, MNO. Meridian Mining is they've got a great project It's a copper gold open pit VMS in Brazil. And I picked them around 50 cents as well. They closed today at $1.57. I picked them, oh gosh, I think they were around 40 cents, 35, 40 cents when I first picked them back in 24 or maybe even late 23. And I like their chances to bring this into production. Now, what makes me especially excited about that project is it's in one of the mining friendly states in Brazil. Uh, Almost every major mining company is in Brazil now because it is pro mining, and especially when you're in the right states of Brazil. And I like their potential because for an open pit, the grades are very high grade. And so usually you've got low grade, but big tonnage is what you most open pits are. In their case, it's a open pit that has high grade for an open pit. It's also a volcanogenic massive sulfide system. And those are known to occur in clusters. Okay, so where you find one or two, there's usually a whole bunch more. So they've been working on two of them, and they actually hold an entire belt of the over 50 kilometers of the right kind of rock to find more of them. So they could have an entire district of VMS deposits. They're focusing in on these two that they want to bring into production. And I think that that's a very good strategy. And I think that this company can grow to be a much bigger company than they are today. As you see, they went through a golden cross back here and have been well above their 50-day moving average. The trajectory of the 50-day and the 200-day is very bullish. And I think as their project gets more recognized, that they'll keep going onwards and upwards from here. So that's the Meridian Mining story. The next company is Northisle. This company is in the Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada, at the north end. That's the North Isle. And this is another company that I picked, I want to say at about 70 or 80 cents. And I think it was right about here. You can find, when you want to find out what I picked companies at, you can go and find that on my Substack that I mentioned at the beginning of the show or on my YouTube channel. And yeah, as you can see, Golden Cross here performing very well against their 50-day moving average. The trajectory of their 50-day moving average and their 200-day moving average is very bullish. Another bullish thing about this company is that they've got a really good copper gold porphyry kind of district, if you will. And they did a financing not long ago. And one of the key investors in that financing was Wheaton Precious Metals, which is a royalty company. And usually they don't invest in companies, they buy uh, interests in the streaming or royalty of a mine that's being built. In this case, they're an investor in Northisle. And Wheaton is known to do really extensive homework. And so it's got the green light from Wheaton, and it got that green light from Wheaton after I had picked it. So I'm very comfortable with this pick. I'm very comfortable with management. Their shareholder base is very strong. They got a great story that's really coming forward quite nicely. And with the whole district of porphyries, they have the potential to have decades worth of production. So, and I'm really fond of their CEO. I think he's got. I've done an interview with him in the past. You can find that on my YouTube channel. I really like his thinking about the business of being a developer and what he wants to build this company into, the team he has surrounded himself with, the team on the board and on the operations, as well as the team of key shareholders. And so I'm really positive about Northisle, copper and gold. And they got lots of catalysts, lots of money, doing a lot of great work. And they're another one you should do your homework on. Okay, the last company in my developer list, I'm glad I was able to get through this today, is the one with the lowest valuation, the newest company. They only started trading in December of 2024. They came down on the new listing, and then right here, they took off. Why did they take off? Okay, first let's put it into context of what they have. They were able to get a 175 square kilometer project in Quebec from Glencore. Okay, so Glencore put the project into care and maintenance in 2022, and they wanted a junior to take it over. And Nuvau was able to structure a deal that made them happy to hand it off to from Glencore to Nuvau. So Nuvau has this huge land package in the Abitibi, and it was a base metal mine since like the 1960s. The most recent miner of that was Glencore. But Glencore is a major and they have priorities that are, this is not a needle moving project for them, but it is a company maker for a company like Nuvau. So one of the growth plans of the company is that they want to bring the base metal VMS Matagami region back into production. They got the mill, they've got the assets, they got the permits. They need one more permit, which is to get they need to build a new tailings facility. And so that is, and permitting those kind of things in Quebec is no problem. And why they didn't want to use the one that Glencore has is because there are some reclamation costs associated with that. Glencore was okay keeping the reclamation cost under their umbrella. And so now Newville has to permit a new tailings mine. But they got all the other infrastructure, the internal roads. It's right in the town of Matagami. This mine was well known in Quebec for decades, and they want to bring it back into production. Now, the Abitibi region of Quebec is a fantastic jurisdiction, and with the right kind of rock packages for gold. That's what a lot of the mining in the Abitibi is about. I think a couple 100 million ounces in resources and production over the last 100 years or so. But this project, the Matagami project, had never been explored for gold because everybody was only interested in the base metals. So Nouveau had heard that there was in the underground workings on one of the mines that they want to bring back into production. They heard that historically there had been some veins, quartz veins with gold in them, near the underground workings for one of their base metal mines. So, but Glencore were not interested, didn't allow the geologists who found it to drill it, let them sample it, had gold in it, but it was never followed up with drilling. So Nuvau went in there and drilled it and found visible gold in the quartz veins, and that caused this big move. And so, and then lately it's been going sideways, and they've got some more drilling on the gold front as well as work going on the development. Now, they've kind of been going sideways for, well, the last half of 2025. Um, if I can say one thing negatively about the company is they do a very poor job when it comes to digital marketing. But they've got a guy running the company who's a very good mind builder, okay? He's not that flamboyant of a promoter of the company and using digital marketing. I hope that he sort of sees the light that he needs to do more digital marketing because this is an amazing project. And yet they've got a very modest valuation. And I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of promotion to tell their story using digital marketing. Nonetheless, I like to find undervalued assets, and I think they are trading for like a nickel on the dollar of what they should be trading at. And so I'll continue to follow it, continue to tell the story, continue to hope for some great results from their gold drilling, and then more developments on bringing the Matagami VMS system back into production for base and precious metals. And so that's the Nouveau story. Okay, so that is my second in the series of three of what I'm calling my year in review for my stock picks at Rocks and Stocks News. The next show will be just about explorers. Okay. And so I've covering it category by category. We got through the majors, the mid-tier picks, the junior miners, and the developers today. And tomorrow it'll be all about the explorers. As always, I don't make buying or selling recommendations. I am merely an idea generator. I use my 32 years of experience to use as a filter to find you good stories that I am optimistic about, that I can cover them and keep covering them and keep people informed on what they're doing. But before you make any investment decisions, you have to speak with your financial advisor and also do your homework. And I'm a big proponent of doing that homework. I hope my shows are sort of the nudge that gets you into doing your homework on these various companies that I follow. But you got to do that homework because I believe, because I've seen it over my 32 years of experience, that the most successful investors in the mining sector are those that are well informed. And so if I give you any piece of advice, it is to be a well-informed investor, know the companies you invest in, follow them closely, do your homework on them, and uh, and that will make you a well-informed investor and not an emotional trader. On that note, you have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.